We don't subscribe to the old school way, nor the new school way, only the optimal way. The 80-20 Baseball Experience with Coach Bo.
Welcome, everybody. This is Coach Bo with 80-20 Baseball. Thank you for listening. Thank you for your time. We're going to get right into it. Part one. I got multiple recommendations today for part one, and you're going to see exactly how that came about and why I have multiple recommendations. And it's going to have something to do with a recent move that my family made. Part two, we're going to talk about how coaches can really up the quality of their speeches and their dialogue and their team talks, and when they're talking with their team, or in fact when they're talking with any of their players. And we're going to talk about a couple strategies that all coaches can use. And a lot of coaches, I think when I try to bring up these strategies, I look at baseball and I look at the baseball community and I look at areas that more often than not, there are certain things that aren't done as optimally as they could be. And this is one of them I think could be improved. A lot of coaches are trying to do a really good thing. They're trying to give their players a lot of information. And we're going to talk about when it comes to talking with your team, talking with your players, post-game talks, pre-game talks, less is more. And we're going to talk about that. I'm going to give you a time that I think you should keep it under, some strategies to really help your post-game talks, your pre-game talks, your post-practice discussions, your in-practice discussions, anytime you're talking with your team or with any of your players for that matter. In part three, we're going to get down to talking about pitchers and specifically how we can improve the timing and the rhythm of the stretch delivery. And this goes for almost all pitchers, maybe outside of like submariners, which is a very small group. All right, now, in our next episode, I want to hit this before we get to part one. In our next episode, the plan is to have an interview with a pitching guy who really knows his pitching, and I'm going to be interviewing him. We're going to dive into pitching. So if you're into pitching, you coach pitchers. If you are a pitcher, you're not going to want to miss that one. And if you coach a team in general, especially like a youth team or a high school team, then there's a good chance you are going to be working with pitchers. And I think it's definitely going to be worth your time. We're going to dive into some really good stuff about pitching. So that's the plan. That interview is supposed to take place this week, and I'm trying to get. My goal is to get the podcast episode uploaded and released to you guys sometime next week. So I'm excited about that. All these episodes that I've been doing, I've done the audio article episodes where I wrote out and produced a lot of good articles. I in my opinion, I thought they were really good, and then I read them out. So kind of like an audio book, but an audio article. And then recently I've been doing the, part one, part two, part three podcasts, these 25, 30-minute podcasts where we're talking about recommendations. We're talking about some strategical things that coaches can do specifically to get better and be better and optimize the coaching game. And then we've been talking about like a specific skill or a specific thing that a player can do on the field. Like, for example, today we're going to talk about the pitching and the stretch and the pitching delivery out of the stretch. So I'm excited about getting into the interview kind of format a little bit more. I know there's a lot of interview formats out there. In fact, most baseball podcasts are interview style. And I do enjoy interview style. I do enjoy group podcasts. But I do think that there's a place for like audiobooks where obviously this podcast is not an audiobook, but audiobooks don't have a back and forth. It's essentially just a lot of good content, typically given, a lot of good stuff, a good story given by an author, by a narrator. And I think sometimes we can get a lot out of that too. We can get a lot more out of that in a faster way. But at the same time, interviews are really fun to listen to because it's kind of like you're eavesdropping on two people talking, three people talking shop or whatever it is. And sometimes that can be enjoyable. There's a little more banter and things like that. It does draw out the content a little longer. So if you're trying to get content in an acute form and you're trying to get a lot like in 30 minutes or 25 minutes, these podcasts aren't like efficient in that way. So there's a trade-off either way. They both have their pluses. So anyways, we're going to get into that. And, in the next episode, I'm planning on doing a deep dive, a pitching interview. Excited about that. All right, part one. So I got some out-of-the-box recommendations. Out-of-the-box recommendations. Now, what do I mean by that? Typically, this first part of the episode, I give you like one recommendation. I talked about Jocko Willing's new book that he came out with. We also talk about some things that, some things that we got to be careful of in the baseball community, things we got to keep an eye out, kind of some red flags that we can all learn from. And that's typically how we take part one. In this particular one, I got a lot of things to recommend, but we're not going to get into each of them in a deep dive, but down the road we will. So recently I moved with my family, and I grew up in Southern California. It was just a real treat to grow up in Southern California for a lot of reasons. And growing up there, just, it was beautiful. The weather's beautiful. We'd go down to the beach. And although I wasn't like a surfer or a beach bum, I would go to the beach a lot. And baseball was big in Southern California. It's big in a lot of places, and there's great baseball played everywhere. Specifically, like in California, Southern California, baseball was just a year-round. It was just a high level of quality and a high quantity of quality players all over the place. And, some of the teammates I played with, there's a long list of teammates that I played with in Southern California that you guys would all recognize their names. And, down the road, we can kind of bring up some of those names as they come up into the conversation. But it was a blessing. I was 15, 20 minutes from Angel Stadium. So my high school was actually in Anaheim. Although I didn't live in Anaheim, it was in Anaheim, but I was only about 15, 20 minutes from Angel Stadium. So I got to go to a lot of our Little League Day every year we would walk around the inside track of the stadium at Angel Stadium. So that was really cool when you're like 7, 8, 9, 10. My high school baseball team played championship games at Angel Stadium. And then my junior year, we played at Dodger Stadium. I grew up a Dodger fan more than anything and went to a lot of Dodger games. And so just baseball was everywhere. It was just really, really a great place to grow up in terms of baseball. The weather's unbelievable. I love my sandals and stuff like that. So, but recently moved from Southern California, and I moved up here to Boise. So I'm in Boise, a little north of town from Boise, just loving it here. I was unpacking before I move into this, unpacking all this great baseball stuff that I want to give some shout outs to, some recommendations to, and for you guys to go check out on your own time. And then we'll dive into them in some future episodes for sure. The Boise State baseball team, after a 40-year hiatus, they just started up their program after 40 years, and they joined up the D1 ranks. So the college baseball is here in Boise, and I know they're going to do some great things with that program. I know they got a new baseball field that's being built, so I'm excited to get out to that and watch some quality college baseball. One of the great NAIA teams in all of the country is Lewis and Clark State. Now that's quite a bit north of here, but that's in Idaho. The Northwest has a lot of good baseball, and Boise also has the Rockies short season A team, so that's pretty cool. In fact, I coached a pitcher about 5 years ago that went to Long Beach State and then got drafted by the Rockies and was playing in Boise this last summer. Obviously, baseball is not going on right now, but I'm excited to get out to some of those games and watch the pro ball and watch the high-level college baseball. I know that every time I'm driving through the neighborhood or walking through the neighborhood, there's kids playing baseball out here in the parks. They're definitely socially isolated. Don't worry, there's social isolation. They are long tossing, so they're keeping their distance. They're working on their long toss, so that's good. And but I see a lot of baseball being played, so I'm excited about that. But I was going through the last couple boxes as I was in the garage, as we unpacked everything and moved into our new house. And I'm going through the last couple boxes, and in the second to last box was all my baseball stuff. Not all my baseball stuff like work stuff, but all my books and all my notes and my notebooks, baseball paraphernalia, baseball cards, gloves. The whole thing was in there. And I came across a couple of things that were really, really, I thought, really cool. I saw a tweet the other day by Shelley Duncan, and Shelley wrote something out about the physics, or he tweeted something about the physics of baseball, a book by Robert Adair. And I think he sent it out like yesterday or a couple days ago, but just the day before that, when I was opening the boxes, I came across the original edition of The Physics of Baseball by Robert Adair. He's a Yale professor. He wrote a great book. In fact, this is the original. I think this was bought when it originally came out, and I think it was 1990 when this book came out. You hear a lot of this stuff now that they're quantifying via technology that he had discovered and figured out a lot of it a long time ago. So I remember growing up reading that book in the mid-90s, 25 years ago, and I was fascinated by it because it was just a totally different look from what I was used to seeing, and kind of stuff I just took for granted. I would play baseball, I'd throw the ball, and a curveball spun tight when it spun tight, and this, and a fastball, or if you hit the ball hard, you kind of saw the spin, it was a little different. If you knuckleballed a hit, it didn't go as far. You top spin, and he talks about all that in the book. And I have the third edition, Physics of Baseball, I bought about 10 years ago. That's a great book. I highly recommend you guys go dig into that. It's not a long book, it's a short book, but it's really a great book. I came across Alan Yeager's book, Getting Focused, Staying Focused. That is an outstanding book because I got into Zen. Growing up in LA, you had the Lakers, and growing up in the 90s, Michael Jordan, and all the games were on TBS. So you could watch all the Chicago Bulls games. So in the 90s, there wasn't a lot of stuff on. There wasn't cell phones. There wasn't internet. I watched a lot of Jordan games, and I watched Phil Jackson. And when he came to the Lakers, I started studying him because I knew I wanted to get into coaching. I just started coaching back in 2003, and I knew it was something I wanted to do. So I started studying Phil Jackson. Well, Phil Jackson's nickname, as a lot of you know, is the Zen Master. And Alan Yeager's book here, Getting Focused, Staying Focused, is the subtitle is A Far Eastern Approach to Sports and Life. And this is a great book. And he even talks about his personal training includes a study of Zen and yoga. In fact, the number one sports psychology or the mental game book that I recommend is actually, definitely Alan Yeager's book's at the top of that list, but at the very top is a book called Zen Golf. And I just pulled that out of the box. And, I know it's a golf book, but everything in it would apply and can apply and help in any sport or anything in life. And I got more out of that Zen Golf book by Joseph Parent than any other, mental book. And some of you guys are like, well, even Heads Up Baseball. Well, actually, right now I'm looking at an original copy of Heads Up Baseball by Ken Ravizza and Tom Hanson. These guys are considered like the godfathers of the mental game of baseball, and they worked with athletes across the board and definitely baseball players for years. And Ken Ravizza, Dr. Ravizza recently passed away, and he just gave so much to the game and brought so much to the table and really kind of got the mental game out there and highlighted the importance of it. His book, Heads Up Baseball, I got the original. This copy is beat up. In fact, this copy is so old that on the inside cover, there's a sticker that says, to order this book, send a check for $17.95 to a P.O. box in Redondo Beach, California. So you ordered the book, you sent the check in, and they would send you the book. So this was definitely pre-internet. This one's pretty beat up. It's got notes everywhere on it, but I want to say I got this back in mid-90s. And so that one is a great. Heads Up Baseball is kind of like the first book that really was out there when it comes to the mental game of baseball. And there's been some great ones. I got another one right in front of me, Brian Cain, So What, Next Pitch. That's the title. I think Brian Cain could have just stopped. I know Ken Ravizza actually used to say like, so what? Next pitch. And so what? Let's move on. So what? Next play. And Brian Cain's book, So What? Next pitch. I think Brian could have just stopped right there, and just that sentence alone, so what? Next pitch, would help so many pitchers and players and hitters and infielders and base runners and people in all walks of life just be better by just getting, so what? What's next? Next move. What's my next move? What's my next thing? So what? This happened. So what? That happened. I made an error. I struck out. I hit a batter. I gave up a home run. So what? Next pitch. Let's go. So I got these great books. I recommend all these. And so this recommendation portion of this, I just wanted to bring up some of these great books. I want you to go check them out. I really recommend Zen Golf. If you like to golf and you coach baseball or play baseball, Zen Golf is a must. Go get that book. Joseph Parent is the author. The Physics of Baseball is a little more, obviously inherently about the numbers and some of that stuff. So if you got a physics background, you enjoy physics and things like that, that's just a great book. Alan Yeager, Getting Focused, Staying Focused, that's a really good one. I'm a huge Zen fan. I mean, I started studying that. I'm a huge meditation and being in the moment, presence guy. In fact, moving to my last part of this part one, the last part of part one here, I found some documents, some papers that I would give my pitchers. This was 15 years ago. Now, I started my coaching career at Mary Star of the Sea High School in San Pedro. I would go over and just help out on Saturdays, but then I helped coach the Long Beach Wilson off-season team back in the mid-2000s. Coaches couldn't coach their teams in the fall and winter. They could do like the sixth period or the PE portion at school, but they couldn't coach them like on the weekend. So Long Beach Wilson, which is a pretty storied program, and they won the national championship for high school baseball in 2007. And they're pretty storied. I coached them. But then I went back when I finished. That was when I was still playing. I would go in the off seasons and work with those two schools. And then when I stopped playing professional baseball, I got right into coaching at my alma mater. And one of the first documents, and this one's stained. It's an old piece of paper that I printed out about 15 years ago. And I gave this to my pitching staff. And now that pitching staff, I mean, we set a school record for ERA, and it was a really, really, it was the high school I went to, Esperanza High School, which is a very storied program, had a national title, been the top team in Southern California numerous times. And the 2 years I was there, we were 48-12, 2 years in a row, in 2 years combined. So against the top competition in Southern California, against some of the top teams from outside of California. So it was a pretty good team at the time. We did really well. And I gave these two things to my pitchers to learn and to think of when it came to the mindset, when it came to the mental part of pitching. So I'm going to read verbatim right off this thing I gave my pitchers 15 years ago. Number one, confidence that each pitch about to be thrown is going to be thrown right where you want it to be while maintaining a relaxed, loose feeling throughout your body. Confidence that you can visualize that it's going to go to the glove and then maintaining a relaxed and loose feeling throughout the body. Basically, I titled this paper, The Two Most Important Mental Things for Pitchers. And then number two there, the last pitch you threw, the last inning you pitched. Remember what I said about Brian Cain's titled book, So What Next Pitch? And let me check the date on this So What Next Pitch. I didn't get this book until way later. So What Next Pitch was published in 2012. This edition was 2012. Well, I gave this paper out this would have been 2005, 2006. Listen closely. Here's what it says. The last pitch you threw, the last inning you pitched, the last game you pitched in, and the last year are over and done with. You cannot go back. Take the positive experiences from everything you do and keep moving along. Keep your thoughts on the present moment. When you're doing something, whatever it may be, stretching, long toss, flat grounds, bullpens, do it with complete focus and concentration. So you can tell I started studying the Zen and being in the moment, before I started coaching. In fact, while I was still playing, and you can see where that kind of came through. But you can see that mental game. I kind of just said those are the two things. And those guys were really confident pitchers I worked with. Those guys were guys that really went out there in tough situations and really got it done. And then I have two other things that I pulled out, papers. One was a throwing program. Now, I'm not going to go through the full throwing program on here. It's just a little hard over the microphone. But I did have rules. And I would give this to my team, my pitching staff. So the rules were for the throwing program. Number one, no talking. No talking at all. Now, when I say no talking, now if they had a question for the coach or a question for their partner about how their ball, the spin or something, that was different. But they couldn't just shoot the breeze during the throwing program. Rule number two, each throw must be made with the purpose of improving your mechanics and your delivery. Number three, use 4-seam and 2-seam grips and then mix in the changeup. Number four, upon releasing the ball, keep your fingers on top of the ball. Although your fingers aren't going to be on top. I put that, the physics, and now we got these Rapsodo, but you have the Egertronic and these cameras, even these iPhones now with the 60 frames per second slow-mo that you're seeing that the fingers obviously aren't going to be on top of the ball. They're going to be behind the ball, but I put that there just to kind of make sure that they didn't get a low elbow and drag their elbow low through and really think, and especially in the long toss portion, you don't want to have an angle that's too steep for no reason at all. If you're going to go steep with your angle, it better be because you got to get it out there 300 feet. And then my last rule I had for them, all throws should be caught. So in other words, all throws should be to a target around the belt area. And I think back, I go, wow, that's something I should have been a little bit more on top of as I move forward with my coaching career, saying, hey, we're aiming for the belt. A lot of times players play catch and they aim for the chest. They don't just aim for their partner. They just aim for their partner, or they aim for their face. So I think that's something you got to work on in throwing program. And last but not least, I pulled out this quantitative, and I knew I had this, and I've been meaning to pull it out. This is a quantitative. I put this together after I read Moneyball when it first came out. I read Moneyball, and I quantified bullpens such as, like, I would have all three pitches broken up, and then it would be total number of pitches divided by total number of points, and the fewer the points, the better. Here I had a guy, Matt Wolfie. Man, he did pretty good. He was like 16 and 2 in his high school career. He was a left-hander. He threw maybe 78 miles an hour. He pitched against some pretty good teams in his 2 years on varsity, and his number here, I had a 3.05. That was his number for the bullpen. And you'll see Nick Culver, another kid I coached. Nick Culver, he had a 2.14, which was better. So you can see I actually quantified, and I'm gonna put this out. I'm gonna scan these documents, and then I'll also try to put the template out there without all this scoring on it, now all the tallies and the numbers on it. But I quantified bullpens based off of the quality of the pitch. So if the fastball was belt high down the middle, man, that was a big no-no. But if that pitch was also way outside, totally ineffective, it wasn't like they were trying to nibble, well, that was also worth a lot of points. And remember, being worth a lot of points was not good. So I quantified that, and if you hit the glove, like I say, you're throwing a fastball away for, say, a fastball glove side, you hit the glove, it was right at the knees, the glove didn't move, well, that was 0. A 0 was the best you could do. A 0 was a perfect score. So I quantified this. I think this is pretty cool stuff. In fact, I'm surprised more teams don't do that now that have the access to technology like coaches. And I'm sure they do. They just don't put it out there for everybody to know. But definitely you can go through and you can just kind of quantify. Like I just went through and I said, well, if the pitch is here, that's as good as it can be. If it's here, that's a little bit worse or a little, or a lot worse, depending on where it was, depending on the experience of knowing pitches at the belt. If you missed with a changeup and you missed down and say it bounced off the plate, that wasn't as bad of a pitch in this analysis, in the quantitative analysis I was doing, as a changeup that was belt high. A belt high changeup might have actually been at the top of the strike zone, but that was the worst spot to put it. It was better to throw it off the dish a little bit or down low a little bit. Now that wasn't a perfect score, but at least I factored all those into it. So I'll put that out there. So those are some things, quantify your bullpens, make them fun. Part 2, coaches, don't be long-winded when you talk to your teams. Don't be long-winded when you talk to your teams. I coached with a really, really, really good coach for about 6.5 years, a really, really smart coach. And at the end of each game or at the end of practice, he could easily come up with 7, 9, 14 things to tell the team, or we could have got better, or things we got to improve on, or situations we could learn from, or he could come up with an endless amount of things to cover because he saw the game, such at a granular level. He saw the game so well. But his talks would go long and he would cover so many things, and it was like the law of diminishing return. And I would pull him aside after and I'd just say, hey, everything you're saying is spot on, and I love listening to what you got to say, but these kids checked out after 3 minutes. They were checked out after 5 minutes. And not only that, they know going in that it's going to be a 20-minute thing or a 15-minute thing or a 25-minute thing. So they might even just check out beforehand because they know this is just going to be a marathon of a dialogue. I said, I highly recommend just taking the 1, 2, at the most 3 things that are the biggest needle movers, the things that are going to make the biggest impact on the team culture or on the scoreboard in our next games. And I said, hit those 2 or 3 things and just it's hard to not tell your team something when they can get better at it. But you just gotta hold back, even though it's hard, even though they're messing up on this little thing here or this little thing there. You just gotta kind of just take it home with you. So coaches, I recommend you have a bulleted list if possible, 1, 2, or 3 things, or just have your 2 or 3 things in your head. Keep it under 5 minutes. If you can do it in 3 minutes and really hit it for 180 seconds and just give them gold and give them just really hit in a concise way some things, 1 thing or 2 things or 3 things that are just going to really resonate and really just they're going to buy into and they're going to go with and they're going to be able to remember and they're going to be able to think of at the next practice. It's not going to be like, oh, he just told me so much, I didn't, and they're kind of in one ear out the other. I highly recommend you set a timer at, say you want to go 4 minutes, set a timer at 3.5 minutes. When it starts beeping, wrap it up. Maybe have another coach keep the timer and he gives you a little wrap up sign. Or if you're going to go 5 minutes, set a timer for 4.5 minutes right before you start talking, and tell your team, say, I value your time. I value our time. So guys, I want 5 minutes. Give me 4 minutes of your time and that will be it. I've set a timer, guys. I want you to get these things. These are the most valuable things. I want you to listen. You can check with them to make sure that they got it at the end, but set that timer initially for some of you long-winded guys. Get that timer set 4 minutes, 30 seconds if you're going 5 minutes, and then start to wrap it up when that timer goes up and wrap it up. Be concise, ASAP, finish it up. Cover the most important things. More is less. And if you hit those 2 or 3 things that are so important to your, like the big needle movers, I just think that's a super valuable thing. So part 2, coaches, don't be long-winded when you're talking to your team. Bullet it out if you can't remember all three, and obviously most of you can remember the three you want to hit. And also the bulleted list keeps you from going off on a tangent because you can draw it right back. If you get a little long-winded with bullet 1, you can pull it back to bullet 2 pretty quick. Just look down, what's bullet 2, boom, go. Keep it to 1 to 2 to 3 things that are the biggest needle movers. So don't be in a hurry to go talk to your team. Maybe you meet up with your coaching staff. Guys, what are the biggest things we need? What's the number one thing that would make our offense better if we learned it and talked about it? What's the one thing that could have the biggest impact on our pitching staff if we could improve it? Boom, then you cover that. What's defensively or base running or what have you? Or it's attitude or team culture. What are the big needle movers? Hit those, take a deep breath, and just be okay with letting the other things just go by and just go home with not saying everything. Another thing that helps too is just add in specific compliments of things that are going well. Compliments, kids are going to listen. They want those compliments. So when you can tie in a lot of that constructive stuff into it and even, kind of critiquing, then they're going to be more open to it because they know there's some good stuff that's getting packaged in there too. All right. Last but not least, part 3, pitchers. Perfect the timing and the rhythm with a single stretch delivery and use that single delivery when runners are on base. What I'm saying here is, and I just put out a video, go to the website 8020baseball.com, and I call it the power slide step. I'm not a fan of the slide step, but I'm not a fan of big leg lifts with runners on base. Most pitchers have varying heights with their leg lift. Their leg lift will, be a short leg lift or no leg lift, just a straight slide step, or it'll be like a medium height or a really high leg lift when runners are on. Depending on the situation, runners can shift around the bases, and so there's certain likelihoods of them stealing or not stealing, or certain runners are fast and some aren't. But what happens is it wreaks havoc on the rhythm and the timing of the kinematic sequencing and all the kinetic chain going through all of the moving parts from start to finish, from the initial move to the release of the ball. There's a lot of things that got to go on. Lower body rotation, torso rotation, the arms, forearms, fingers. I mean, there's just so much involved with throwing a baseball, and it happens really quick, and we practice it and get so good at it we don't have to think about it. And so there's a lot of parts, but as a pitcher, you don't really think about all those parts. But there's a lot of room for things to go wrong when you start getting into varying leg lift height. What I'm recommending, and I propose pitchers get one leg lift height. I recommend the power slide step. It's a lift up your leg, your lead leg, a few inches, just lift it up 2, 3, 4, 5 inches, quickly lift straight up, not back towards the rubber, quickly straight up, and then push your front hip forward and then sink a little on your back leg as you're going forward, but it's all quick. It's lift, push the hip out, sink and go. Now it all happens so quick, so it's really hard to see it with the naked eye. But if you go and look at the video, the power slide step video that I have out, you'll see exactly what I'm talking about. I break it down for like 15 minutes. I'm telling you, this is a game changer when especially youth pitchers, high school pitchers that just don't have all day to practice their timing and things like that. This is just really going to help pitchers repeat their delivery, and timing and rhythm and repeating the delivery are so vital when it comes to pitching. We know they're important at hitting, and that gets talked a lot about. But timing is so important and rhythm is so important for pitching. So I believe that this will help out pitchers not have to fight through the timing issues nearly so much. And it doesn't sacrifice anything. I don't think it's going to sacrifice. I think, in fact, the command is going to improve. I don't think it's going to sacrifice velocity. I just don't. I think if it's done right, you're not doing a slide step, you're doing a power slide step. It's fast enough to hold the runners and control the running game at first, but it's something that you should be able to use with runners at any position. It's fast enough to hold, it's quick enough to hold runners, but it's slow enough to be able to repeat and be consistent with the timing and the quality of the pitches. So I feel really good about this. A lot of years putting a lot of thought into this. In fact, I used to teach pitchers to have like 3 leg lift height in the stretch. So runner at first, most of the time the runner was a threat to steal or could steal. Every once in a while you get a slow guy over there that wasn't going to go anywhere. But most of the time it was something somebody had to pay attention to. So I would teach them, just be a little quick. In fact, I actually taught them this power slide step. But then I would tell my pitchers, hey, when a guy gets to second, hey, maybe buying a little more time, getting a little higher leg lift is better. And I thought that was more beneficial than just sticking with the power slide step. And I would tell them, hey, get a mid-level, kind of a mid-height leg lift with a runner at second. And if the bases were loaded or if there's a runner at third, I would tell them, hey, get a big leg lift in there, kind of like the closers, out of the stretch with that big leg lift. But now I'm thinking back and I go, you know what? I would absolutely change. I would go back if I could and say, no. You got your windup, and that should be repeated very similarly. I know you see guys like Marcus Stroman, those guys are doing some funky things. They pause, they do some. Most pitchers they're not that athletic, so they're just not going to be able to do that, nor would you teach that. I think it's a little goofy, and if I was in charge of baseball, I wouldn't let pitchers do some funky, like pausing in the middle of like their pitch, like randomly, unless it's something they consistently do. But nonetheless, you have your wind-up delivery that is the same, and then you have the same stretch delivery in terms of how fast. So basically, if you stopwatched it from first move to release, it would be the same every time. It wouldn't be like a 0.75, and then the next it would be like, and then it wouldn't be 1.1. And then you'd have a high leg lift and it's 1.2. It would always be about the same amount of time. And I'm telling you, this will help repeat. It can hold the running game, but it also doesn't sacrifice the quality of your stuff. And the best thing about it is it gives you that repeatable timing each and every time. All right, guys, thanks for listening today. Go check that video out. Go over to 80/20 Baseball and check out all the podcasts, the videos, the articles. And don't forget about the master coaching program over at 80/20 Baseball. It's essentially for you coaches. It's got everything that you need to coach at the youth and even the high school level, outside of like handling parents and fundraising and that sort of thing. But everything right there for on the field, for team culture, everything is there for you, ready to go. It's already been built. Go check that out. That's available at 8020baseball.com. Take care of yourself, focus on the good things in your life, and take the info that you learned here and go out to the field and use it. This has been Coach Bo. Bye for now.
This has been the 80/20 Baseball Experience.
This is a really good team, and so you have to earn everything you have against them and take opportunities when they present themselves.
Take it to the field.